Good morning, fourth grade, online learners. Welcome to another day of science, October 12th, where today we are going to learn about plant life cycles. And in our book, this is what our page looks like, minus the stuff in the margin. But your student text at school looks very similar. Excuse me. The main idea is flowering plants produce seeds during their life cycles. The seeds grow into new flowering plants. Lifespans vary for different types of plants. That's our main idea. Some of our vocabulary this week is embryo, germinate, life cycle, and lifespan. Life cycle, which would mean it would keep repeating over and over from the seed all the way back around to when the seed was dispersed again and everything in between. Lifespan is how long that particular plant or flower lived. A small seed is planted in the soil. The seed sprouts and grows into a tall tree. In time, the tree flowers and then begins releasing its own seeds. One day, the tree dies. You just read about the life cycle of a tree. A life cycle is a series of stages that occur during the lifetime of all living things. The changes that occur during any life cycle include birth, development into an adult, reproduction, and death. Flowering plants, including trees and grasses, produce flowers during their life cycle. Flowers produce seeds that will grow into new plants. Parts of a flower. Petals. The petals attract birds and bees and other insects to the lily. Stamen. The stamen produces pollen. Pistil. Pollen collects on top of the pistil. Seeds are produced in the lower part of the pistil. And again, there's what our page looks like in our book of that pretty flower, parts of a flower. Next, we'll go to this page, and this page is A65, Life Cycle of a Flowering Plant. A bee moves from the stamen to the pistil. The lily forms seeds. The lily plant releases the seeds. When a seed germinates, a young lily plant grows. The stamen of a flower makes pollen, which is needed to form seeds. Plants can form seeds when the pollen is moved from the stamen to the pistil. Wind, water, or animals move pollen from the stamen to the pistil. Brightly colored petals attract birds, bees, and other insects to a flower. When pollen moves from the stamen to the pistil, a plant will produce seeds. Each seed contains an embryo and a protective coat. An embryo is a plant or animal in the earliest stages of development. Some seeds will land in places where they germinate or begin growing a new plant. The new plant grows and forms flowers, and the cycle begins again. So a question says, what step in the plant life cycle comes after pollination? The plant produces seeds. Okay, the last page before the visual summary is this page, lifespans of plants, which can vary depending on the plant or tree or whatever you're studying. A lifespan is the length of time it takes for an individual organism to complete its life cycle. The length of a lifespan may vary from plant to plant. If you plant bean seeds, the plants will grow, produce seeds, and die all in one summer. If you plant a maple tree seed, the new tree may live for hundreds of years. The flowering plants, the lifespan begins with when a seed germinates. It ends with the death of a plant. The span of the bean plants are a few months. Redwood trees have lifespans of thousands of years. In organisms that are similar, such trees, the smaller kinds, usually have shorter lifespans than the larger kinds. This is not always true, however. For example, both the ponderosa pine and the Pacific yew have a lifespan of about 300 years. Ponderosa pines grow almost 131 feet high, while the Pacific yews do not even reach 66 feet. So there are a picture of some plants there, and you can see what they are: the redwood, Douglas fir, sugar maple, and I believe that last one says service berry. Okay, so for our visual summary on the last page, and then there's some questions. The parts of a flower include the petals, stamen, and pistil. The life cycle of an organism includes birth, growth, reproduction, and death. Plants have different lifespans. A lifespan is the time it takes to complete one life cycle. Some of the review questions are: what are the main stages in the life cycle of a flowering plant? I can share that answer with you: seed germination, growth into an adult, reproduction, and death. That should sound familiar from what we read. Question 2, use the term embryo and germinate in a paragraph that describes the life cycle of plants. Question 3, what happens in the life cycle of a flowering plant after it produces seeds? Critical thinking. You know that a tree near your school produces flowers. Someone tells you that the tree does not produce seeds. What would you say to that person? Think about that one. There's a good answer to that. How is wind pollinating a flower similar to an insect pollinating a flower? How is it different? And last is the test prep, the stamen of a flower. Does it protect the seed, hold the embryo? Is part of the pistil, produces pollen? Okay, so that's that for our lesson. It's kind of short this week. There's really nothing in the margin for me to share. Let me just double check that. It does say you can keep a plant journal of a growing seed. So if you plant something, you can keep a journal of what happens as you water it and put it in the sun. And maybe after a few weeks, you can report back. So if you're interested in doing that, that's always an option. This is our study guide for the week. This is online. So make sure you study this for your quiz. Some of the words on here are embryo, the beginning stages of an animal or plant's development. Lifespan, an animal completes its life cycle in this amount of time. Germinate, to begin growing as a new plant. Life cycle, stages that occur during the lifetime of a living plant. Main ideas are: when a flowering plant germinates, the lifespan begins with a seed. A flower stamen makes pollen. Smaller trees have shorter lifespans. Birds, insects, and bees are attracted to brightly colored flower petals. Animals, water, and the wind can move pollen from the stamens to the pistil. I know that from making the quiz, those items are on the quiz, so make sure you know your study guide and you will do good on the quiz this Thursday. Okay, fourth grade, good seeing you virtually, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.